Hello, May class, and welcome to your next English lesson. In the previous lesson, we were model writing the key text that we have been looking at and the text map. So I modeled writing the introduction paragraph to you, and then we also looked at one of the other paragraphs. So in today's lesson, we are going to be looking at the text map. We're going to be boxing up what goes into our text map, and so that we have a better understanding of it when we are innovating our text map in the next lesson. So if I share my screen with you, today's lesson will look at boxing up the text map to better understand the structure that is being used. So let us read through our text map together. And I want you, as I'm reading through it again, read it with me. You can read out loud, or you can pause the video and read it yourself, but you can follow along. And we're going to also be thinking about what the structure is, what facts are in here, how it's laid out. We're also going to look for the sentence level features that are being used in the writing. So let's read it together. Boudicca, queen of the Iceni tribe. Have you ever wondered what makes a good leader? Read on to find out more about a famous leader who led her tribe in a rebellion against the Roman Empire. Who was Boudicca? Boudicca was the joint ruler of the British Iceni tribe, who lived in a region of Britain now known as East Anglia with her husband Prasutagus. Under Roman law, Boudicca, as a woman, had no right to inherit her husband's property. Prasutagus hoped to safeguard Boudicca's position by making an agreement to leave half his property to Rome. In 59 or 60 AD, Prasutagus died. When Boudicca attempted to defy the Romans who had come to seize her property, they had her beaten and they attacked her daughters. Physical characteristics. Boudicca was a very tall woman with a mass of long red hair. She had fierce eyes and a harsh voice. Boudicca was a lady who was noticed. Boudicca's army. Boudicca rose up and staged a rebellion against the Romans. She brought together tribes to fight against the Romans and tried to force them out of Britain. Boudicca led many against the Roman army and Roman villages. Her army greatly outnumbered that of the Roman attacks. It was in her final battle that Boudicca met with defeat. Although her army was large, they were not as skilled and as organized as the Roman army. Boudicca exemplified a great leader. She was fierce, brave, and fought for what was right. Our picture shows Boudicca riding into battle. Our fast fact box has where she was born, where she died, or when she died, other names for her, her occupation, so what she did for a living, and her spouse, her husband's name. And then there's a small did you know box that says the name Boudicca means Victoria or victory. In today's lesson, we are going to be boxing up our non-chronological report. So I will show you the first bit and we will work through it together, and then you will be boxing this up for yourselves, keeping your box up so that you can refer back to it when we are innovating in the next lesson. So if we look back at our introduction and we start with this, our introduction obviously has our topic sentence. It says, have you ever wondered what makes a good leader? So we know that the subsequent sentences are going to tell you a little bit more about our leader. It also introduces you to the fact that the person we are reading about is a leader of some sort, and we're going to look at what makes her a good leader. And so that's introducing you to the topic that's going to be the topic of our non-chronological report. It is also a rhetorical question, so making sure that the reader is interested and wants to read more to find out about this leader. So the first thing I'm going to write in my box up is that it is a rhetorical question, and it is an introduction to what the whole So it is an introduction to what the whole non-chronological report is going to be about. So we've got our rhetorical question, and we've got the fact that we are introducing what the non-chronological report is going to be about. If we go back and look, we can see that I haven't necessarily mentioned that I'm going to be speaking about Boudicca, but I have said that if you want to find out more, read on to find out more about a famous leader who led her tribe in a rebellion against the Roman army. So I haven't listed everything that Boudicca has done. I've just mentioned one thing about what makes her famous. So we can say underneath here, I'm going to write read on to find out more. And obviously that is to explain that we're going to go into more detail when we read more of our text map. If we move on to paragraph 2, our question is, who was Boudicca? So I'm going to put that there. Who was Boudicca? So as we've mentioned before, this should tell you that this paragraph is going to explain more about Boudicca, or about the person that it is, that the non-chronological report is about. So more detail about the subject of the non-report. Okay, I haven't written what her physical characteristics, what she looked like. That hasn't gone into that because that is a separate paragraph. So if we look back, we've got, it explains who she was, where she lived, a little bit about what happened to her. And we've also used, so let's say all of that. We can say who she was, where she lived, what she did, why she, well, we could go a little bit into why she was famous, but we did go into that actually in the Boudicca's army one. So who, where, what would be explaining, so a little bit more about her. Other things to pay attention to in that paragraph is that I've used possessive apostrophes. So with regards to that is I've used it as Boudicca's position, her husband's property. So it is property that belonged to her husband. It was Boudicca's position. So making sure that I am using my possessive apostrophe correctly. I also would put the fact that I have used facts and dates in that paragraph. So there's a little bit more about Boudicca's husband. There's a date of when he died. We say that in 59 or 60 AD that he died, and obviously that led to a change. Paragraph 2, after the first paragraph is the physical characteristics. So this would focus more about what Boudicca looked like. So what she looked like, okay. And then what would be important here would be our descriptive language. We would look at describing what she looked like. You could bring in a bit of her characteristics. So the fact that she was fierce. We spoke about the fact that she was a woman that was noticed. So you couldn't not see her. Her personality and her looks made her stand out. She was tall. So what she looked like, we've used descriptive language. and we've also described the type of person she was. Okay, let's see if we've missed anything. So Boudicca was very tall with a mass of long red hair. She had fierce eyes and a harsh voice. Boudicca was a lady who was noticed. So we've said all of that. And it's important, obviously, to remember what we've discussed about when we're writing paragraphs, about having our topic sentence that links to the subsequent sentences. So you could start with saying Boudicca was someone who was noticed. She then was noticed because of this, and this. Okay. Paragraph 3. Paragraph 4. Paragraph 3 is obviously about Boudicca's army. And again, I've got my possessive apostrophe because it is her army. So the things that we need to be paying attention here are as follows. So we've got Boudicca rose up and staged a rebellion against the Romans. That would be our topic sentence. And then underneath, we'll go into more detail about Boudicca and her fight against the Romans. So I'm going to put into our box up here a topic sentence that links to the subsequent sentences. So a topic sentence that links to the subsequent sentences. And then we would also, if we're looking at the sentence level things here, we are going to look at the fact that we have got conjunctions, making sure that our sentences are extended. We've got, so it says, let's see, we've got Boudicca rose up and staged a rebellion against the Romans. She brought together tribes to fight against the Romans and tried to force them out of Britain. She led many against the Roman army and the Roman villages. Her army greatly outnumbered that of the Romans. It was in her final battle that she met with defeat. Although her army was large, so we've got fronted adverbials, they were not as skilled and as organized as the Roman army. We've used interesting vocabulary as well. So I'm going to put that into our box up. So we need to make sure that we are using conjunctions, fronted adverbials, interesting vocabulary. And this can easily go for each one of the paragraphs that you write. You should be writing with conjunctions. You should be writing with fronted adverbials that are punctuated correctly. You should be using interesting vocabulary, even if it is nonfiction writing. Look at using topic vocabulary, words that are specific to the topic we're writing about. We're looking at leadership, so use the word leader and leading and led, and look at the words we've used about rebelling against what the Roman law said and what the Romans said. So those are all types of interesting vocabulary that we can use. So we've got all of that. Our fourth paragraph is obviously what I've actually written here. I've got a bit for a conclusion, but I'm going to put conclusion here, and then I'm going to put other here, and you'll see why I say that in a minute. Okay, so the conclusion is obviously then the final bit that we're going to say about Boudicca, and drawing in right back to the beginning where we said what makes a good leader. We looked at that rhetorical question. So this will then link to that. So if we go back and we look at it and we say that Boudicca exemplified, which is a fantastic vocabulary word, a great leader. She was fierce, brave, and she fought for what was right. So that sentence will link back to our introduction. So your conclusion should link to your introduction and it should briefly talk about what you've read. So back at the beginning, like I said, we asked that rhetorical question about what makes a good leader. And in the final concluding paragraph, we say, through everything that we've read, we can see that Boudicca was a good leader because of the following. She was fierce. She fought for what was right. She didn't let the Romans walk all over her. So we'll look again, linking to your introduction. We make sure that we have used again interesting vocabulary. We make sure that it concludes or brings to an end the non-chronological report. So concludes the report. Okay, so I have said other for this box because this I want to refer to with our fun facts or our quick facts. Quick facts or interesting information, or the sorry, I'm just need to make sure that you can see this because it is okay, I've able to move it up a little bit. So I've written other because if we refer back to our non-chronological report, we can see that actually there's different there's little boxes that don't necessarily fit the rest of the paragraphs, but there's still interesting information about Boudicca. So we've got a did you know box, we've got fast facts, and you can see that there's not a lot in there. The did you know box has got one thing, but it's an interesting thing that maybe we want to learn about Boudicca. The fast facts are also something quick that we can learn about her that gives us more information. It's not even in full sentences. It's just laid out with quick facts of born here, died here, other names she was known by, what she did for a living, and who she was married to. So that is something that you can include in your non-chronological report. You can also include quick facts with using bullet points. So we looked at using bullet points in the previous one, in the previous topic. So when we looked at instructions, you will also see that the picture that we've got has got a caption underneath explaining what the picture is. So that other box here is obviously quick bits of information, so short bits of information. We would say short and snappy. So just a quick, here's a fact, here's a fact, here's a fact, and making sure that you can just read that and find out more. Okay, and then underneath here, we've got some interesting vocabulary that we may want to include when we're talking about a leader. So if I go back and I look at the words that we've got making sure that we use the word leader. I've used the word exemplified. Exemplified. I have got the word fierce. I've got the word brave. I have the word skilled. So her army wasn't as skilled. She was a ruler. She was famous. She led a rebellion. So all those vocabulary words I could include in here. What was it? I missed it. Brave, fierce, organized. Okay, so all of those would then go into the vocabulary words that maybe I want to use when we are innovating our text a little bit later. So if we zoom in a little bit so we can have a look at the box up. So we've included rhetorical question. We've got an introduction to the whole what the whole non-chronological report is going to be about. We've said read on to find out more. In the first paragraph, we've got more detail about the subject of the non-chronological report. So it's more in this sense about Boudicca. We've got who she was, where she lived, what she did. Okay, those are specific things that are all about her. Those also, if I had more information to write about where she lived, we could actually make that into a different paragraph, but I've put them all together because it's just quick things that we can learn more about her life. I've made sure to use possessive apostrophes, and obviously, as with all the paragraphs, we've included facts and dates because that is important when we're doing a non-chronological report. Physical characteristics, we've got what she looked like, we've used descriptive language, we've described the type of person she was, not just the fact that this is what she looked like. We've also said she was fierce. We've got topic sentences that link to the subsequent sentences, and that also goes for all the paragraphs, all have topic sentences that then everything else is linked. We've used conjunctions, we've used fronted adverbials, we've used interesting vocabulary. We have our conclusion that links to your introduction. So it links back to the original question that we asked and briefly mentions what we've read. We've used interesting vocabulary again, and it concludes the whole report and kind of brings it to an end. I've mentioned that we've got fun facts. We could use quick facts. We could use interesting information, short bits of information. And then I've also mentioned, obviously, some vocabulary words that we could use. Also, something that we can think about, and I'm going to put it right in the introduction so that we know that it is the whole report, was that this one, because it is a historical one, it is written in the past tense. And you are explaining about someone, and it's in the third person. So we're talking about Boudicca. So your 3 tasks today are as follows. You're going to complete your box up of the non-chronological report about Boudicca. You're going to highlight some of the vocabulary words that you think are important and write them in the final box. So I started that, but what I would like you to do is highlight some of the words that we've used. Maybe you could think of your own vocabulary words about being a leader and ones that you could refer back to. And write that in the final box. And then think about another paragraph that could be included in this non-chronological report and write down some ideas for it. So if you were to write about Boudicca, is there anything that you think could have been included in this non-chronological report? What would your paragraph have been? What would you have called it? What would have the subheading been? And what information would you have put into there? So please make sure to answer these 3 questions or get through as much of it as you can in the hour. The box up, obviously, you can draw your own, but if you struggle with drawing it, I'm also happy for you to write the title, or sorry, the subheading for it. So we could write, break down each one. So you could say introduction, and then you could write underneath it. Then you could say who was Boudicca. So you could write it like that and then write the information underneath it. So it can be laid out like that, but make sure that you have it so that you could refer back to it when we are innovating the text tomorrow. Please make sure to share this with us on Tapestry and let us see what you have boxed up and some of your interesting information for the next paragraph that you would have included. Please make sure to try and upload your work by 4 o'clock.